All right, I'm here with my bro, with Sam, and we're talking about agentic coding. And Sam is going to show us and talk about something that he built called Knightwatch, which is for autonomously reviewing PRs, or reviewing, approving, converging, merging. How would you describe what Knightwatch is?
Knightwatch is an autonomous code review agent.
Okay.
So I think I did like a couple things I've learned interviewing engineers. So like I interviewed Jesse Vincent, who was the lead maintainer for the Perl repo, and then I interviewed Wes McKinney, who created Pandas, the Python data science library, and about maybe a dozen of their peers, and they're not reviewing code anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they have to intervene, like if a PR doesn't get merged because of a system design problem, like it chose the wrong seam to add an API on or whatever, they treat that as a problem with the code authoring and review system, not a problem with the PR.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have essentially an autonomous process to go from like the spec to merged code,
mm-hmm.
and they're constantly developing and refining that process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm essentially, Knightwatch is like half of my attempt to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So with Knightwatch, my thesis is like, you can't get a reviewer this good like buying it off the shelf, because this uses your subscription, your Codex subscription,
mm-hmm.
and Codex is subsidizing tokens, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so what Knightwatch will do is it'll actually, you can spin up as many subscriptions as you want. So I run four Codex Pro Max or whatever they are subscriptions, right? And each of those is a container that will pick up a review off a queue. And so all of my repos are monitored by Knightwatch. And that kind of the idea is I'll go to bed and I'll set a bunch of agents writing code, and my goal is to wake up to converge PRs. Right? That's why it's called Knightwatch. And so this is the rough. So the idea is like, I just want to throw as many tokens at this problem as possible, right? Because I don't mind buying a $200 subscription if it gets me like solid, good reviewed PRs.
Yeah. And
so what Knightwatch does, it starts by inferring the intent of the PR. I've found in my interviews that this is very important. Often, like if you don't have intent, your reviewer is just gonna go off. You'll never converge, because you're like, for example, I'm writing a pre-product market fit thing that's just like one user myself, and I'm running, and I'll get all of these like security, bugs from RoboRev, because I'm running RoboRev without an intent for the repo, right? And so I actually have done a decent amount of work. So Knightwatch now not only infers intent, but it will also look at a repo specific file, which I've just consolidated on reviewer.md, which is the same file that the Claude reviewer uses. So every repo should basically have reviewer.md in it, in my opinion. And in reviewer.md, you should have the overall thrust of the project. Like, are you pre-part, or is this rapid prototype and you're just trying to figure out if this thing is even going to work, or is this like, $100 million worth of asset values going through this every day? Like that context should lead to very different reviews, right? So you want to start with that. I then go through kind of a static search. So I have a lot of opinions. Like, for example, you always want strongly typed code, and I'm always looking for dead code, because language models write so much. And I actually have this like hand-tuned, there's just particular nits that I don't love that LLMs did a lot of, used to. Now I don't know that they do as much, but like one example is like single-use functions. You'll have like 8 functions that are like referring to each other, and they're all called once, or you'll implement the same thing 5 different ways in the code base, right? And so I have some static checks to look for that kind of stuff. So actually one thing I do is called kid, keep it dry, and it's a separate service. This is getting kind of long.
This is great. Keep going, man.
So it's a separate service that does a vector database on the functions in your code base and like the doc strings in your code base, and so it's basically looking for semantically similar stuff to the stuff that's being written right now, right? And so Knightwatch, I guess it's not in this diagram that they created, but there's, as part of this wave A, there's a search for kid code, so like possibly duplicative code, and so that all gets passed into these specialists. And I basically created a specialist for everything that I want. Like anytime a PR doesn't merge or a PR merges where I'm like, that sucked, I'll be like, well, what specialist needs to be created, right? And so I have a lot of specialists around architecture and like the shape of the code and like contracts that drift, because in consumers, all of this is about like what I suspect your engineers pay attention to. Like, you know, like you'll have a particular like producer consumer relationship, and then it'll change it in one place, but it won't change it. And actually, one thing Knightwatch does is you can even pass it like sibling repos. So it did this organically once. It was kind of crazy. It like I think I gave this as an example. But it caught like a contract drift where the API was another repo was depending on that API, and I was about to introduce a bug into that other repo, and it just happened that other repo, it was like an accident, like that other repo was being reviewed by in the same container, and so I had access to both code bases, but I've since like coded it in where you can like define what the sibling repos are that you want Knightwatch to consider. Nice. And then what I do actually is I store so this leads to an aggregator that will aggregate all these together. They'll merge them, they'll rank them, they'll dedupe them, and then that leads to a review with ranked probes. And then I store whether or not the probes are accepted or rejected. And so then this, because I'm a big believer in like, there are many real world examples of taking non-deterministic systems and leading to deterministic outcomes, like stochastic systems that lead to deterministic outcomes. And one of them is like evolution, right? And so wherever possible, I try to bring, another is like aviation, you know, like aviation, you have like 3 systems that control the aileron or whatever. And so, you know, like with the space shuttle or whatever, you know, or we're going to the moon, and 2 of the 3 can overpower the third that's going crazy, right? And it's just like, in today's world, I just try to bring as many of those patterns into, right? And so it's like, do everything 3 times, right? Like it's free, right? Another is evolution, right? So I try to evolve these specialists where I will drop the specialist that isn't getting their probes accepted.
And what is critic?
Oh yeah, so every specialist then goes through another pass with a critic, which is basically designed to like an call out the bullshit of the
adversarial type.
It's an adversarial review, right? Yeah, and so then it's all.
Will the critic pass it back?
What happens is the aggregator gets both the specialist and the critic's opinion of the specialist.
I see. Interesting.
And then the aggregator kind of makes a call on what to.
I see. Interesting. That's
right?
Cool. Yeah.
And then there's also a momentum which looks at the overall direction of the review, because if it's not converging, I try to like pass that feedback back to the author, which is an agent. And so this is half of it. The other half, which is probably another video, is like I have the babysit PR skill, which is essentially, this is how I want you to get your reviews converged with Knightwatch, right? And so it's got all sorts of other like techniques in there.
Is Knightwatch open source?
Yeah, this is an open source.
Okay, so it's worth checking out.
And so, but it's great. I mean, like, so right now I'm working on, you know, like we have reviews being babysit right now, basically, you know, and so if I go pull requests, so this is my short-term rental thing that I'm just testing. And so this is basically the merge rate. Anytime a review is closed, it's because it didn't converge.
Closes red, merges purple. Yeah.
And that would indicate like, you know, something something happened. This is 15 comments. So this is like one of the harder ones that it kind of struggled to converge.
Okay.
Right. But the cool thing is, like in the past, reviews would always balloon. They'd always skip. Right. This is actually a net negative diff. Right. And like probably like if you look for simplific, you know, like there's you know, Knightwatch is saying, oh, you can save 199 lines of code right here by changing your architecture.
And so all this is automated, like all of this back
This
and
whole
forth
thing is automated. So this is anything with probes is a Knightwatch review. Your goal is to basically get to no probes, right? And so then this is my babysit PR, which is the other half of this, which applied the probe, the correction, you know, and then, so finally a probe's none, you know, and every review starts with intent, names the strengths, you know, so intent is always it appears. So it appears Sam is working towards letting the aggregator review nightly generated vault updates and promote them deliberately instead of receiving automatic commits, you know. And so once you get to, and then, so once it gets to, basically my morning, I just look and I'm like, okay, no probes, merge that, no probes.
So you're still the human in the loop merging. Like, how much do you think you really need to actually be hitting,
you know,
hitting that final button?
I really don't need to. I really look for two things. One is, and I actually just coded this into the Babysit Knightwatch loop. So now when Babysit PR, when the PR is authored, I have intent coded into the code base. And also the intent of the PR is coded into is written into the PR, and then the thing, this is going to allow me to automate the whole thing. I also code in the expected complexity in lines of code into the beginning of the PR, because then that is the information needed to understand, is this PR going off the rails or not, right? For the agents, and I have a number of different methods to like confirm there isn't scope creep that's leading, you know, because you'll just get these 300 line of code PRs that turn into 2,000 lines of code,
right,
you know, and so that's what I'm looking for is in the morning is no probes and no like crazy
scope creep,
you know, overly complex, overly engineered. I now trust the system to make the right like design calls as far as like the design of the system. Especially if I use brainstorming on the front end. Yeah. So
cool. This is really awesome, man. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I'll have to do a Babysit PR one too.
You can't really use Knightwatch without Babysit PR. If you don't have Babysit PR, it becomes, because Knightwatch is hard to get a green. Like my coworkers struggle to get, because once you get so anything medium or below, it'll approve the PR. Knightwatch has a reputation among my coworkers of not approving PRs, and I'm like, I don't understand, because you just saw like 95% of the PRs are getting approved.
So Babysit PR is the magic that,
you know. So I do think you need both sides of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another video coming.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.